Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Made Man, a podcast dedicated to the AMC television program Mad Men, where today I watched episode 11 of season 2, The Jet Set. Now, who is the Jet Set? Well, I guess the Jet Set would be Don Draper and Pete Campbell as they head off to California to learn what they can about science, technology, rocket ships, defense, and how advertising can fit into that. So we're in LA with Don and Creepy Pete, and Pete just wants to take a little bit of time to relax and sit by the pool, and Don's like, that's not what we're here for. We're here to work. You can go on vacation. I can put you on vacation if you want to, but we're here to work. So Pete's like, meow, right, fine. And meanwhile, Don's just kind of waiting around the hotel while he sees a blonde woman who he thinks is Betty, but it wasn't. Now, they did a cool little thing where at one point it really was Betty. I can't think of her name right now, the actress. But it was her. Then when it turned, it wasn't her. Then when the person walked by, it was her. Then when you saw her again, it wasn't her. So it was a cool little way of showing us what he thought he saw, because we were like, wait, did we see that too? But it wasn't her. And that was the only moment of Betty in the episode, and I have to say, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with no just, sad Betty in this episode. I'm totally cool with that. Now, actually, is that how, I don't even think that's how the episode opened. It isn't how the episode opened. I just watched it. I literally got off the couch after watching this, and I already forget how these things open. I believe this episode opened with the Secretary Jane reading in bed, reading some poetry in bed, and who comes out but who comes out but Roger Sterling, and she's like, who wrote this? And she's like, I did. I get inspired to write poetry. And he basically is like, he doesn't want her to get older or something like that. She's like, well, I'm going to get older. And she is like, you've had your wife and your daughter in your life for 40 years. He's like, 30 years. That's it. And he tells her, look, I want you to marry me. Will you marry me? And she says yes. So now he's engaged to a 20-year-old secretary in his own office. And let's just stay with his story for a little bit. So later on in the episode, he is meeting with what seems to be a lawyer, a divorce lawyer, talking about his wife and what she wants. And he's like, I don't want her to have a penny of my business. She doesn't deserve a penny of my business. She doesn't deserve a penny of my inheritance or anything like that. She's lucky I give her anything. She's lucky I'm willing to give her anything. That's generous enough. And he's like, maybe you could just stay with her and have an open relationship. He's like, we haven't been happy for a while. I don't want to die with this woman. And the lawyer's like, okay, all right. I'll see what I can do. But basically, he goes, this is what I deserve. This is this life that he has with his young fiance. This is what he deserves. Sure. Yeah. I mean, he's a guy who, thinks he deserves these things just because he wants them. And the lawyer's like, just think of all the joy you have in your life and everything you have and maybe cut it in half. Now they're in New York, so I don't know how it works, with law, and I don't know how it worked in the 60s. But this is probably going to be an ongoing story throughout at least next season, I'm guessing, because we're almost done with season 2. He then gets interrupted by his lawyer when Duck Phillips comes to visit him, and Duck is like, hey, I know that lawyer. And Roger's like, oh, I see. You also had a divorce. How did it go? He's like, well, he's one of the best, him or this other guy. And she's like, Roger's like, oh no, Margot has that other guy. But that really wasn't what Duck was there to talk about. Duck came in to say, hey, I've been here for a while, and I think I deserve a seat at the table. How about making me a partner? And Roger's like, well, I'll definitely bring it up with the other partners at our next meeting, and I think you should be there. But I just want to let you know that I think you need to come in guns blazing. He's like, oh, why do you think that? Well, you didn't bring the 30% you promised, and you underperformed with this, you underperformed with that. And Duck's like, are you kidding me? I understand you. Thank you for being candid, but I've been doing my best. And Roger was like, well, this is the truth. So later on, Duck meets at a hotel, meets at a restaurant with two guys from another firm, an international firm that I guess he used to work with. I recognize the guy. I don't know if that's the guy from The Nanny, but I've seen him in other. I think I've seen him, this actor, in some of the what's his name, Christopher Guest movies. I think this is who this guy is. But anyway, he has an international firm, and Duck wants to meet with them, I guess, to see what he could get, if he can get a new job, another offer. And the guy's like, we're not really looking for help at this time, but if we were, you'd be at the top of the list. And Duck doesn't take no for an answer. In fact, he says, what if I could guarantee you an American office? And he tells this guy, look, Roger is going through a divorce. He's got a 20-year-old fiance. His wife's not going to leave him with a pot to piss in. This is the time for you to come in, swoop in, buy 51% of this company. You become the controlling owner. You put your key in the door, boom, you automatically have an American client base. And I'll be the president, and I need to run creative, and that's the way it's going to be. The guy's like, interesting. Later on, he goes back to Sterling and Cooper. They're both there, and Bert Cooper's like, are you leaving us? And he's like, no, this is not what I want to do. But what about you guys having an international office? And I met with these people from, I took a call from these people, which isn't exactly true, that said they were interested in coming in here and buying a big chunk of this office. You get to keep the name, but they come in and they would automatically, give you this international part. And Roger's like, that's interesting. I guess, what do? Do we just wait for them to make an offer? And, we'll make them, see if they can make an offer. Oh, do they have an offer? He goes, no, not yet. Is there a number? And they said, let's let them make the first offer. So Duck, as much as, I don't like this guy because I feel like he was, first I'm thinking, was he undermining Sterling Cooper? Now is he undermining the other company? Is he having them work against each other? I think he's undermining Sterling Cooper, but he's just looking out for himself. And I don't like him for that. You jerk. What you did to you, even just still for letting your dog walk away, you deserve your family leaving you. You deserve your wife leaving you. You deserve your kids not loving you. And I hope that that this falls through and Sterling Cooper kicks your ass out the door. Friggin' name is Duck. What a jerk face. I'm going to go through these. I'm all over the place, but that's just the way it is. Staying in New York, we have some of the people talking about right guard, and they just can't focus on work. We have the creative duo where it's the young guy and the French guy there. Kinsey's off doing civil rights, but we have Sal there. We have Harry Crane there. Peggy's there. And there's just some small talk, and they can't really focus on work. And they start talking, the French fella is talking about how he has gone to see Bob Dylan in concert. And Peggy was like, oh, that, they thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Later on, Peggy says, I would like to go see, that'd be cool to see sometime. He's like, you should come with me. We should go. We are neighbors. I would pick you up. He didn't take no for an answer. And later on, they get all these donuts because of a job they closed. They're getting donuts delivered all the time. They're sitting around in the coffee room, and they find out that they're going to see Bob Dylan together. And the guys make little snide remarks like, "Oh, you guys make a cute couple." And the French guy's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "You mean me and Peggy?" He's like, "No, I am homosexual." And Ken is like, I don't think that means what you think it means. He goes, no, it means I make love to the men, not the women. And he was he didn't give a shit. He's a French guy who just doesn't care. He's a gay dude and he does not care. But the look on these guys' faces was like, what the hell is this? This is insanity. And the look of just fear on Sal's face where he was like, oh my God, there's a gay guy here. And look at this reaction that these people are getting. And oh my God, does he, can he tell that I'm gay too? Obviously, Sal's never done this, but let's be honest. It's like the look of just fear on Sal's face. You just feel horrible for him and for guys like that at that time, for gay men at that time, that just were afraid to live their honest, true life. And this French guy's like, yeah, that's who I am. I don't care. He leaves the room, and they're like, I think Joan came in, and they're like, oh God, I forget his name. He's a homo, and they're like, oh my goodness, he's a pervert, and that's crazy. How can he? That's insane, and it is sad that that's the life that was, and that's the way it was for a long time. It's I'm not even gonna say the 60s. It's just like that's the way it was for a while, and it's too bad. It's sad actually, but they still he's like, I'm still gonna pick you up at 8 o'clock, or I'm gonna come over at 8 o'clock. He comes to her house at 8 o'clock, and they have a glass of wine, and she's like, why can't I ever pick the right guy? If you want to go with another man, that's fine. He's like, what are you talking about? I just want to go to the concert with you. And she's like, why can I never pick the right man? Why can I never, pick the right boy? And he's like, well, your hair is old fashioned. Let me do something for you. So he takes her into the kitchen, and he chops off a big chunk of her hair, does her hair for her. She's like, what? He goes, don't worry, I'm good at this. At the end of the episode, they're in a room together looking at President Kennedy talking about segregation, or not segregation, but the opposite of segregation at a school, and they're like, oh, that's crazy. And Pete walks in because Pete comes back from California. We'll get to that. And he's like, oh, you look different. What's so different about you? She's like, oh, my hair. He goes, oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, that's nice. Why is Pete back from California? Pete's alone back from California, and that's because of what happened in California. And I save that for the end. Let's go back to California, back to the beginning. Pete and Don are there for work, and Don is not into Pete, enjoying himself. It's all about work. It's all about work. So while he's waiting for Pete Campbell to come back from trying to meet and schmooze with these guys, these people just walk up and are like, are you a movie star? Are you an astronaut? I want you to meet someone. This woman over here wants to meet you. This is Joy, and it's this really pretty young woman comes up, and she's like, hi, how are you? I'd like to meet you. He's like, oh, very nice to meet you. But I am here meeting with someone. They're like, you should join us for dinner. Oh, maybe another time. Thank you. And he blows them off for Pete, but he kind of looks at her, and he keeps looking at her, and he's thinking, he's probably thinking, I got Betty at home. I've already done enough to ruin our marriage, but now she hates me. And here I am. She doesn't want me home. Well, I'm not home, so maybe I should just be here enjoying myself. Well, they go to one of their meetings, one of their the things at the conference they wanted to go to, which was a presentation on rockets. And these rockets that hold 14 nuclear warheads that could take out the USSR. And they're showing explosions and showing, it's drawings of these warheads blowing up all over Russia. And Don starts hearing explosions in his head and looking at it, and you're thinking he's getting some flashbacks to his time in the war, and he's probably thinking to himself, what am I doing with my life? So later on at the resort, he sees this woman again, and he's like, oh, nice to see you again. She's like, well, you want to hang out? He's like, no. He goes, well, she's like, I guess this is goodbye, because I'm heading off. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay. And he looks at her, he thinks about it, he looks at her again and says, screw it, gets in the car. He's supposed to be going off to meet Pete, gets in the car with this woman. She's like, don't you want to get your things? He's like, nope. Puts his sunglasses on and heads off with her to some house. Now, they have friends that own a house, and all these people that she was with before, and some other people, just come and use the house while no one's there. And they show up, and they see Don in this suit, and the first thing Don does is collapse. Why? Probably because he's not used to the California heat, and because he's dressed in this giant-ass suit. He wakes up on a couch, and the guy's trying to inject something into his arm. My first thought was this was heroin. I don't think it was. They never brought it up again, but my first thought was this guy's like, this is medicine. And he's probably shooting him up with heroin. I don't know. But he's surrounded by all these people. They're like, oh, you passed out. And Don's like, what is this? And the woman's like, look, we're kind of nomads. We go, this is where we're staying right now. We enjoy life. He comes out later dressed a little more appropriately for dinner. And they're like, Don! And they're all happy to see him. And he's like, what is going on here? And they're playing little word games. The woman grabs him by the leg and gives him a big kiss. And he takes the kiss and enjoys the kiss. And he's kind of like, what is this? You guys all independently wealthy? And the guy's like, well, I could work. None of them have jobs. They just are freeloaders. That's what they are. They're a bunch of freeloaders. And then I'm thinking, are these people the jet set? Are these the ones who they're living the jet set lifestyle, one place to the next, wherever free stuff can take us, boom, 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 boom. So that's what I'm thinking. Maybe that is where the double meaning of the title comes in. So flash forward to Dawn and her going into a bedroom, and they get it on. And the next day they wake up in bed, and they're a little small talk, and the guy walks in, the guy who introduced them in the first place, and he's like, hey, good morning, how are you doing? He has a bit of an accent, I can't quite place it. He sits down on the bed, he's like, oh, these people are coming, and don't I make beautiful children? And he hits her on the girl on the leg, and Dawn's like, that's your dad? She's like, yeah, he doesn't want people to know how old he is, so he doesn't really tell people. But Dawn is basically with these freeloaders hanging out, sitting by the pool with them, hanging out, making out with this girl in the pool. She takes her top off. And that's when these other people show up. I think it's her brother and their family, and she's got two little kids. And, he's probably making Dawn think of Sally and Bobby back at home. So later on, they're talking about going, to another place. And she's like, oh, you can come with us to here. You won't, we're going to Nassau. Then we're going to this other, another country. You can just come and do whatever you want. I don't care. You can be with whoever you want. I'm very open. It doesn't matter. Just come be with us. My dad likes you. You're handsome and you don't talk a lot. And towards the end, after, he doesn't really talk about that, but after, waking up the next day, again, he just completely blows off Pete, completely blows off whatever meetings they're supposed to do, and just does this. After after waking up the next day, another day there, he gets a phone out and makes a phone call. And my first thought is, oh, he misses his children. He misses his wife. He's going to call them. He wants to go home. He realizes what he has. And he gets on the phone and goes, hi, this is Dick Whitman. I'd like to see you. Writes down an address. And then he leans back and does that Mad Men pose where his arm is draped across the couch, like in the logo for the first season. Dick Whitman. He called himself Dick Whitman. He wants to meet with someone. Who does he want to meet with? I don't know. Probably someone to do with the war, I'm guessing. Maybe seeing those meetings with the warheads brought something up with him that makes him want to go and, rekindle friendship or a relationship with someone. But he's not leaving California just yet. Now, Pete is back. We saw a shot of Pete at a pool sitting with some guys being like, Don should be here any minute. I know he has to make a phone call. Then we see Pete sitting again poolside by himself saying maybe we could take the meeting here because I don't have a taxi. And he's doing paperwork. And that's it. We don't see Pete getting angry. We don't see Pete freaking out. In fact, Pete comes back at the end when he talks about Peggy's hair. He's got grapefruits, I think orange. I think they're grapefruits for everybody. And he's like, "Has Dawn checked in? Has Dawn come back yet?" And they don't even say to him, "Wait, you're not with Dawn? Dawn wasn't with you?" That's when they cut back to Don still in California when he calls someone as Dick Whitman. So maybe Pete was like, hey, he said California was great. Talked about it being great, but doesn't like it out there. Like he couldn't live out there. But he did say it was great. So maybe things worked out for him. Maybe he saw it as, I don't need Don. I can use this as leverage against Don later on. And this is only going to help me. Maybe that's where Pete stands. We don't really know because they didn't talk about it. But it seems like you can't leave it at that. Pete obviously has questions, right? And where does Don go from here? Who is he going to meet? And are we just going to talk about Dick Whitman? Is there going to be a lot of Dick Whitman next week with the next episode? These are the things that I'm asking myself, and hopefully we'll get answers soon enough. But my friends, I think that covers everything in this episode. We see some guys having intolerance for homosexual men. We see Sal with a look of fear in his eyes. We see Peggy getting a new haircut and going to Bob Dylan with that French guy. We see Duck perhaps pinning two advertisement companies against each other, or at least looking like he is the mastermind behind what could be a takeover, and he wants to have control of the Sterling Cooper, whatever becomes of Sterling Cooper. And speaking of Sterling Cooper, we have Roger Sterling, who's getting a divorce, doesn't want to give his wife anything, but is really excited about the life he deserves with his new 20-something-year-old fiance, who he loves, and I can't believe this. I mean, are we going to have a wedding soon? I hope so. And I think that basically covers just about everything in this episode. You know, the recap was short. The end, a little summation. My summation was short, but the actual episode, a lot of things happened. But most of them, it was like Don just kind of exploring life. And what does that mean for him? It didn't mean him calling his kids and wanting to go home right away. It meant him wanting to actually go back into the past that he has never wanted to talk about, never wanted to deal with, didn't even want his brother around, to the point where his brother killed himself. He was so destroyed and alone. Now, all of a sudden, he's saying, "Hi, I'm Dick Whitman. I'm here to hang out with you. What do you want to do?" Gets an address, and we'll see what happens next week. But my friends, I thank you for listening and subscribing to me at fansnotexperts.com/mademan. I am Mike. I am the Made Man, or at least I'm trying to be. You can find me on Twitter at MadeManPod. Again, I said facebook.com/fansnotexperts and fansnotexperts.com/mademan. We're available everywhere in the world that podcasts are available. Google Play. Do people actually use that for podcasts? I don't know. Spotify, I know people do. Thank you for listening through Spotify. iTunes, obviously. But everything else, Stitcher, TuneIn, anywhere you can get a podcast, you can find us. You can find me. And you can listen to my golden voice every Friday until we finish this journey, as I walk across the world of Mad Men in my quest to become a made man.
Fans Not Experts.